Welcome, everyone. We will get started in just a few minutes. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you may be. Welcome to the Global Ocean Acidification Observing Network webinar series. The presentations will get started soon. I just have a few words to share on how we will proceed today. Please use the questions box in the control panel at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen to submit any questions to the presenters, or if any technical issues arise, please communicate those there. We will get to the questions for the presenters after the presentations today. The webinar is being recorded and will be made available on the Global Ocean Acidification Network YouTube channel. And that link to the YouTube channel can be found on the GOA-ON or Global Ocean Acidification Network's website. Please do note that we do have some hashtags for this series, which is hashtag GOA-ONWS, which you can see here. You can also follow the Global Ocean Acidification Network on Twitter at GOA_ON. This is the second webinar of the GOA-ON webinar series, and today's topic is measuring ocean acidification to support the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, or SDG, target 14.3, and the related indicator 14.3.1. This presentation will introduce the Sustainable Development Goal 14, or SDG, specifically the SDG target 14.3 and its indicator 14.31, and its focus on ocean acidification. It will introduce the SDG indicator methodology, related metadata and data requirements, what kind of data to submit and where. In this webinar, we will show how international collaboration can and already has increased scientific capacity, and how continued efforts will hopefully help to reduce the negative impacts on ocean health. Today's presentation will be given by Kirsten Izanzi, and Kirsten is a program specialist for ocean carbon sources and sinks in the ocean science section of the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO. Kirsten has been a program specialist at the IOC of UNESCO since 2012, where her work focuses on ocean carbon sources and sinks, trying to distinguish the natural and anthropogenic influences on the marine environment in support of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. She provides technical assistance to activities promoting women in science and facilitates collaboration between scientists, policymakers, and stakeholders via networks such as the Global Ocean Acidification Observing Network, the International Blue Carbon Initiative, and the Global Ocean Oxygen Network. She received her diploma and PhD in marine biology from the University of Rostock in Germany. Katharina Scho will also be presenting today, and she is a consultant for ocean acidification in the ocean science section of the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO as well, where she focuses on the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development particularly the Sustainable Development Goal 14.3.1 indicator, which is under the custodianship of IOC. Katerina is also part of GOA-ON, or the Global Ocean Acidification Observing Network Distributed Secretariat. Before joining the IOC, Katerina received her PhD in marine biology from the University of Kiel in Germany and worked in several ocean acidification projects, studying the effects in ocean carbonate chemistry on coastal planktonic food webs. We will start this webinar with Kirsten. Kirsten, I will hand it over to you.
So it seems you can see my slide. Welcome, everybody.
Yes.
I'm very thrilled here to talk to you today. And just to start, all what I present here is really teamwork. It's not only me, or it's not only me and Katerina, but it is so much supported by GOA-ON, and therefore I'm very happy also to talk here at this occasion of the second webinar of the Global Ocean Acidification Observing Network. So what I'm really trying to introduce here is the global observation to attain the UN SDG target 14.3 and its indicator, what to measure and how to report. In this regard, just to give you the objectives a little bit of what we hope we will achieve after this talk. And I'm sorry, I think a few of you heard me talking about similar issues quite a bit, but repetition is never bad, I think. So the objectives of today is really to increase the understanding of the SDG 14.3 target, what it is, and also what the related indicator 14.3.1 means, what its purpose is. We hope that after this webinar, we also will have facilitated a little bit the use of the 14.3.1 data portal, and this is what Katerina will mostly talk about. And then we want to, not only with this webinar, but in general, hope we foster the collaboration between data providers, data managers, and data users. Of course, this is one stepping stone in a long journey, and objectives for the future are really to increase the visibility of you, the scientists, you, the experts of your OA data sets at the international level, and to improve those connections between the data providers and national governmental organizations responsible for the sustainable development. So just briefly, where I come from or where I am now, as mentioned, by training, I'm a marine biologist, but now I work at the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission at UNESCO, and UNESCO is the only body of the UN system which has this E of education and the S of science, and I think those are also capacity building and the scientific development key to GOA-ON and key to really what we try to achieve with the 14.3.1 indicator and supporting the scientific community in that. The Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO is then, on the other hand, the only body of the UN with a mandate really in ocean science. So it's we are a small team and there's a huge ocean, so we try our best to really support the community where we can. But going a little bit to why we are actually here today for this webinar. So in 2015, the UN agreed on 17 objectives to transform our world, the 2030 agenda. And those 17 objectives resulted in 17 goals, and one goal 14 focuses on the ocean and to protect its resources and to sustainably manage it. In this regard, because I mean we have this SDG 14, but how far are we in really achieving it and to really manage our ocean resources, to know what we have and and to know how to protect it, and also so that also future generations can benefit from it. The UN also recognized then that there is a need for actually to improve the science behind the ocean science for sustainable development, and just now, which starts this year, the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. This decade really provides a common framework to ensure that ocean science can fully support countries to achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And IOC UNESCO has been tasked by the UN General Assembly with the preparation and also the coordination of this huge 10-year undertaking. The decade has a vision, and this is the ocean we want. And this is underlined by 7 outcomes: a clean ocean, a healthy and resilient ocean, a productive ocean, a predicted ocean, a safe ocean, an accessible ocean, an inspiring and engaging ocean. And ocean acidification, I think it's clearly at the forefront. We have to address it if we want to have a healthy and resilient ocean, and if we want to have a productive and predicted ocean. So far, we are still far away sometimes from all these. So as mentioned, there is this vision of the decade, the science we need for the ocean we want. And this is supported by its mission of transformative ocean science solutions for sustainable development, connecting people and our ocean. So those are very broad statements and sometimes a little bit difficult to grasp, but the implementation plan, which can be easily found, gets a little bit more specific and identified also 10 challenges, ocean decade challenges, objectives, and all that can be only attained if we act. And those are the decade actions, decade programs, decade projects, which start now. And 2021, I think, is even with COVID, an important year for ocean science, really getting this ball rolling. As mentioned, and there are those 10 challenges, and I'm not reading them all here. You can see those 10 here on the slide. But there are 5 of the 10 which I think are particularly important for ocean acidification research, ocean acidification observation. And this is the second, on multiple stresses, solutions to protect and monitor, manage and restore ecosystems and their biodiversity under changing environmental conditions, including climate. So really understanding the multiple stresses, and ocean acidification is clearly one of those. But also to enhance our understanding of the ocean and climate nexus, and to use this to generate solutions, to mitigate, adapt, and build resilience towards those changes. And I think here again, being ocean acidification, at least the open ocean acidification caused by CO2 emissions, there's a clear need for us as the ocean acidification community to contribute to that. The same, clearly, we all want that ocean acidification observation is sustainable and integrated with other ocean observing systems. And all this information we are generating now should be, of course, as well available to everybody and part of the digital representation of the ocean. So I hope I made it pretty clear why there is a global approach, but to be a bit needed for ocean acidification observation and research. But just to be a bit more concrete on ocean acidification, it's to achieve those challenges. We really need to observe sustainably on global scales in order to understand ocean acidification and its drivers correctly. We need information and data products that can inform policy and the public with respect to the global status of OA and its implications. Products fit for purpose to really inform and give the evidence to to the action holders, if you so want. And we need sufficient data to develop predictive skills and early warning systems. So coming back to those 17 goals and particular goal 14, and now really go a little bit more into that ocean acidification is already since 2015 well represented in that, and this is via one of the SDG 14 targets. SDG 14 has 10 targets, and 14.3 focuses on the reduction of impacts of ocean acidification, and IOC is custodian agency for that. I will explain in a second what that means, custodian agency. We are also custodian agency on 14.8 to increase scientific knowledge, research, technology for ocean health, and of course those are closely interlinked with increased capacity building. We also have increased scientific knowledge. We help UNEP with the target 14.1 and target 14.2. So going again one more step deeper. So the goal 14 is conserve and sustainably use the ocean, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. The target on ocean acidification reads minimize and address the impacts of ocean acidification, including through enhanced scientific cooperation at all levels. So it's kind of what GOA-ON does. And but then more specifically, we need to deliver towards the indicator 14.3.1 as an indicator, as a proxy on where are we in achieving 14.3. This indicator reads average marine acidity measured at agreed set of representative sampling stations. And of course, this is definitely not perfect, but this was agreed by countries and quite often not by experts. But I think we can be very happy that ocean acidification is in there and has this status in New York at the UN. And just another comment on that, proxies are never perfect. So whatever we will find, but sure there's always a way to improve and maybe also to change. So what does custodianship as an agency actually mean? So we need to provide the community with the internationally agreed standards, coordinate the indicator methodology development, and support increased adoption and compliance with these standards. We also are responsible to collect the related data, the ocean acidification data from you, from the countries, and we have to our role is as well to increase the capacity by your national agencies to actually improve the reporting. So the first step was, as said, the SDG indicator 14.3.1 methodology development. There again, I would like to say a big thank you to GOA-ON and its experts, because this was quite a journey and it's never over. And so this indicator the countries agreed on in 2017, and in 2018 we had a methodology which was then applied for the first time to collect data. So to give a little bit again through this whole process, we have the 2030 agenda with the 17 goals, goal 14 focusing on the ocean, then the target to minimize the impacts of ocean acidification, and here then just an average value for an annual average value for a given station in the country. And this then needed to be fed with a methodology, establishing a reporting mechanism. And then when we have those data, and then we have to put them in a form that we can report it back to New York. And so this is here now what we do on an annual basis. who actually contributes to these data, and why should you actually worry about it or care about it? So every country in the UN country signed up for the 2030 agenda and accepted national regular reporting towards all indicators. Of course, the how far this is established in different countries is very different, and therefore IOC follows three paths for data collection. We go via IOC national representatives. So we have 150 member states, and we go via those and try to get their data directly. We go via the existing NODCs and ADUs, so National Oceanographic Data Centers and the associated data units. And we use the GOA-ON network to really get data, because sometimes the IOC national representative doesn't know every scientist in the country, and NODCs might not have the relevant data. So the capacity for ocean data, what we also discovered at the administrative level of different nations, is rather limited. So if an NODC exists in a country, this is supposed to be the main contributor. However, data and metadata collected there might be not sufficient or might be not at all appropriate for the 14.3.1. There's also one caveat that a lot of scientists, of course, already contribute related data sets to other relevant databases. However, so far we are not able to harvest that directly. So therefore, we really urge individual scientists as well to upload their data, and as mentioned, Katarina will go into that a little bit more. And like that, we can then go back to the National Oceanographic Data Centers, to the IOC focal point, and connect those two and make it a national contribution. Like that, the scientists really also can start a dialogue with their government representatives, and data management, and I think communication, at least most of the time, is rather an advantage than a disadvantage. I'm talking really far too much. So as mentioned, as not mentioned yet, but so the SDG 14.3.1 methodology is not only a piece of paper. So we have related data files, we have metadata files, we have methodology explanations and definitions. We do trainings and workshops, like also this one here. And all that then together is the methodology. The methodology in itself can be found on the GOA-ON website, and it provides definitions. What do we actually mean with average ocean acidification values? The units we are reporting and what people should submit, the rationale for inclusion, how we compute it, give some guidance on sampling strategy and sampling frequency. It also gives an overview of the best practices, standard operating mechanisms, measurement and data collection, measurement and data quality. In addition to that, it also explains a little bit what I just did, the data sources, and how we are actually collecting the information. One important point, and this is again, so ocean, how it's defined in the methodology, we are not using data down to the bottom of where you are, where you measure. It's only surface, which is defined in our methodology to 10 meters. And within that, with those measurements, we identified 3 categories of measurement quality, and those are adapted from the GOA-ON requirement plan. A lot of what the 14.3.1 methodology actually provides is a combination of different sources which are already in place and used by the community. So the climate quality is really what is also the climate quality in the GOA-ON requirement plan, and but so far, unfortunately, only a few laboratories are able to measure that, and it's not achievable for all parameters, even with the best autonomous sensors. The weather quality is what most of you probably measure. It's suitable for many coastal and nearshore environments, particularly those with restricted circulation, or where the CO2 system parameters are focused by processes like upwelling, pollution, freshwater, with a huge variability. This is something which is achievable by many laboratories with some training and also with autonomous sensors. The third quality, we are not discarding any information we are receiving, because even the information that there are some OA-related measurements is useful, and it's a point of where we can start to improve, and the point where capacity building development can make a huge difference. So it's, for example, when the instrumentation like glass electrodes is used, or when there's maybe just one value of the ocean acidification system, and but all that can be made visible in our assessment. And this year it will be by a map where you can also see just here people try to measure ocean acidification. It might be not 100% aligned with a methodology, but there is a good starting point and place for improving. And so what Katerina will present shortly is a 14.3.1 data portal, which we started in 2019, late 2019, and it's now in its second year, and it really provides you with a user surface to upload and also download data sets. There's also a frequently asked question part where a lot of questions you might have hopefully are answered. Otherwise, Katerina and I, we are not moving right now due to COVID, so we are here to help. So in the beginning, those data sets were, of course, also very limited, but we already, in the very early stages, we got some nice data sets from the US and also from New Zealand. We also have those long-term time series, which we used for reporting. But all those data sets then also go in the UN database. So your data are visible if people want to retrieve them at the UN level. And I think that's something we are not investigating in a vacuum, and that should be, I think that's important for us all to recognize that there is this, we are all hopefully doing that to improve the ocean health, and we are all to protect our ocean. And even though this graphic might be very tiny, but it gives at least some information to non-experts. And then if they are interested, then they can go deeper and look for the data sets, and not only there, but also in the SG report, which is a written report. This was, for example, what was reported last year based on the submissions to the data portal. And yeah, so which is already a big step forward with thanks to the OA portal. However, those data are not only staying there, they are also going to the WMO statement on the climate state of the global climate each year, and the next one is coming out I think in the upcoming 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And again, GOA-ON contributed with its data and read it by the 14.3.1 submissions. And just to tell you also some good news. I mean, it might look like teeny tiny steps, but in the second year of the portal, we were able to move from 8 countries which submitted data there to 30 countries. And I think and I know that is thanks to a lot of capacity training by GOA-ON and partners, and we saw how really GOA-ON kit recipients participated in this data collection exercise, and I'm very happy to see now this increase we have in Asia, Africa, Europe, Oceania is already pretty good. There's still potential in the Pacific Islands, but we have Australia, New Zealand, and Fiji, and I think that's just a great success to show where we are, and also for Southern America that countries start to report now. So what are the next steps? I mean, this ocean acidification science and observations are not standing still. So what we are planning to organize here at IOC is really to review the 14.3.1 methodology, to look where do we need to improve, where do we need to really change some things, maybe even. We currently, hopefully it will start soon, to establish a federated system between the different existing databases to harvest relevant data so that people really don't need to submit to 10 different databases to be visible. We will continue the capacity building, and the new online platform, the Ocean Teacher Global Academy, will host soon an ocean acidification course, which includes one module on 14.3.1, but also a lot of other important information, biological, chemical observations, data quality, and so on. And we hope that we can also continue our in-person teaching very soon. We put this offer out to you if you want to have this type of webinar to assist also, and of course tailored then to at the national level and regional bodies, how to contribute to the SDG indicator 14.3 in a more interactive way with questions and answers. We're happy to do that, and just please contact us. And I hope that we achieved, or that a few objectives of this, at least the first one, is already a little bit achieved, and that we are going together the next few years to really improve our reporting and improve the understanding of ocean acidification, and that we then can also really connect the data providers with the data users so that we actually can minimize the impact of ocean acidification. And I hand over to Katharina.
Thank you, Kirsten. Just a reminder, as Katarina is joining us, if there have been a lot of great questions so far, please keep those going in the questions box, and we will get to them during our Q&A after Katarina's presentation.
Excellent, thank you. Can you all see my screen? Jen, can you just check?
Not quite yet. Yes.
Excellent, thank you very much. So welcome everybody. As Kirsten already said, I will be talking a little bit more detail about other aspects of this SDG indicator. And just to remind you, we've already seen this graph. The indicator is not just a piece of paper. So it's the methodology at its core, but it also has obviously some other aspects to it. Kirsten already briefly outlined what the methodology entails, some of the explanations and definitions, and I will be going into a bit more detail on the data file, the metadata file and the instructions, and the SDG 14.3.1 data portal for the data uploads. And so we'll just start right there. This is the SDG data portal. And the thing is, I'm going to go into a little more detail on that, and I'm going to walk you through it in a minute. So we'll get back to that. I just wanted to make you aware right now that the full text of the indicator methodology, as well as the metadata template, the data template, and the metadata instructions are available on this, and they're available here for download. So you can come back to this anytime. I want to talk to you first a little bit about the data template, and I've downloaded this one that I've just shown you. So as you can see, there's 3 tabs on this data template, which gives you examples for column headers. So for example, for the template moorings, you have the mooring name, latitude, longitude, the date, time, depth. And these are, and I want to just show you the one for the discrete samples as well. These are all suggestions. So these can be changed, these can be adapted. We have on this list here variable abbreviations, and we have the preferred units, as well as the full variable name, just to explain what it is that we're looking for in these sheets. So as you might have noticed, there's data quality flags that are included, and we really encourage you to include those in all of your data sets. These are also explained both in the methodology and in the metadata and the instructions. So I have prepared a data set just to walk you through one of those. Mine is called North Island, and it's a mooring. So as you can see, it's always at the same latitude and longitude, not moving at all. It has the name, the date. It has a second row here for the units, just to kind of specify again what it is that we are looking at. The depth of the station, as I said, latitude, longitude, the sampling depth. Then we have temperature, salinity, and please note that there's flags here as well. So this data set, in addition to the CTD salinity, also includes salinity measured in the lab, a flag, total carbon, a flag, alkalinity, and the quality flag for the alkalinity data. A complete data set for a submission to the SDG 14.3.1 indicator also includes the corresponding metadata set. And again, I have one prepared. And the metadata is really very important to allow us to proceed with quality assurance, to know that how the data was collected and which steps were taken to ensure data quality. So we really encourage you to fill in as much as you can on this sheet. And I'll just walk you through this. As you can see, there's instructions at the beginning. So we ask you to please not change the order of the rows. If there's a row that you do not have any information or any data for, just leave it blank. That's perfectly fine. There's a lot of information included in this. You've seen maybe that it's 240 rows, which might seem a little scary, but you will see that it is a lot of information that is required, and then there's some information that is suggested. So we encourage you to just fill this in as you take your samples, as you analyze your samples. It can be an extension of your lab notes, if you like, just to keep track of what it is that you've done. So we start here with, as you can see, the text highlighted in red indicates information that is required to conduct quality control of the data. And as I said, please just fill in as much of that as you can. And the rows in bold, and I'll go into those in a minute, they have a drop-down menu. So you can choose one of the answers that's provided there. You will also notice that there's at the very back here in D, a help reference number. And this is to help you out if you have a question, you're not entirely sure what is meant by one of the metadata element names here in B. There's the fourth element of this indicator methodology, which is the metadata instruction file. And that is also available for download on that SDG portal. So this is the same help reference number that you have in the metadata sheet. And these are brief descriptions just to give you an idea and a little more background and detail on what it is that we are looking for in these particular items. So this can be, for example, something like the methodology that was used to characterize the carbonate system. So if you could include a citation, a reference, a paper that you've used, or reference back to one of the SOPs, the standard operating practices, that would be what we're looking for in there. Or it could be something like, what do we mean by platform? And in this case, what we mean is a platform can be a research vessel, or it could also be a glider, an Argo. It could also be a buoy. It could also be a coastal sampling station. So this is just what we want you to specify here. And then it could also be something like an expo code. So we have an abbreviation in the metadata file. And this also gives you a source right here of where you can find that relevant information. And this is what most of these brief outlines in the description and in the instructions are. So going back to the metadata sheet, As you see, it starts with submission date, just very sort of basic information, the investigator name, I've been bold and put my name in here, and IDs, the other investigators who took part in this, and then the data submitter name. This is quite important for us just to be able to, in case there are questions, be able to follow up and to contact whoever is responsible for submitting this data. Then we have name of sampling site, short description, the methods that I just showed you, number 10 on the sheet, on the instructions, and things like the first date, the last date of the measurement, the longitude and latitude. For cruises, we would like the easternmost, westernmost. And as you can see, these are all in black. So these are all data that is very, very good to have. This is not entirely required. Then things like North Island Reference Station. We come to the export code that we've just mentioned as well. The author list for citation of this data set, that is really quite important. As you can see, it's in red. Supplemental information, this cites a few papers where the methodologies are described in more detail. And then we come to the actual variables. And the first one that we have here is depth. We always need, for every data set that is submitted, make sure that we have depth, sampling depth, salinity and temperature, as well as 2 of the 4 carbonate chemistry variables. So here we have, as you can see, the abbreviation, and that's another very important point that I would just like to highlight, and I will mention this again as well, is that this corresponds to the name in the data file. So whatever you called your sampling depth, this is the abbreviation that needs to show up here, so that afterwards, when the data and the metadata are submitted, these two can mesh and they can recognize, the program can recognize that these two belong together and that this is where we're looking for. Same here for the DIC, the variable, it's called DIC in the methodology. In the data sheet that I have, it's called T-carbon. So just to look back at the data sheet again that I showed you a minute ago, this would be my T-carbon. So this is important that these match. Then observation type, in this case, is red and bold. So you know that there is going to be a drop down. And for the drop downs, we've asked our experts and quite a lot of people who do ocean acidification research what the most common ones are. So you'll find that these will pretty much always have A as for the analyzing instrument, for example, also drop down. But because we couldn't come up with all of the analyzing systems that are possible, we've already listed quite a few, there's also an empty field. So if yours does not show up in this list, and this is true for most of these drop-down menus, if your answer doesn't show up in the list, please just choose the empty one and type in your answer. So whichever that may be, can go in there. Then we have things such as the analyzing information, whether or not you've done any quality control prior to submitting this data, what this is called, again, this was the flag I just showed you earlier there, and which type. And so you'll see that for most of these drop downs, there's also going to be the same text that will show up in this instructions, will show up just as a pop-up. So we have this, again, a whole list of different flags that are commonly used. And there's a list, if you follow on the instruction sheet, there's a list of where to find all these different flags and the descriptions and definitions of that. And so you see for this data set, as I showed you on the data sheet, we have DIC, we have total alkalinity, and again, we have the variable alkali, we have a fixed coastal station, we have all of these different background information such as SOP3B from Dixon, one of the standards. We have the flags, we have the different poisons, we have all of these informations that allow us to assess whether or not data quality was assured. So this data set, as you see, does not contain any pH, nor any PCO2 or FCO2. I just wanted you to know that these are also variables that are available as choices in this metadata field. However, as I said, very, very necessary, the temperature, again, the sensor, the collection method, the variable unit, and the temperature analyzing information. This also has flags, which is very good. Salinity, same for all. There's also a CTD salinity, as we've seen in the data, and there's a depth. So what you might have noticed here is we've gone beyond the 240 that I've mentioned in the beginning. So it is possible to add more variables if you have them. And we encourage you that if you have any sort of nutrient data, for example, then please, you're very welcome to submit those as well. These are always very welcome. So we've received nightshades, we have received dissolved oxygens. And so these are all very good auxiliary data to have. So this is a filled in data metadata sheet. We've seen the data sheet. And so that we have these two filled in, collected. I will talk to you about the actual submission process. So first things first, you see the data portal, and we have this map which indicates data points. So this is where we've already received data from. Not every single point is on there. Unfortunately, we received a few that we're still processing, but the darker the data, the more data points we have for that spot. So you can see that there's a few. These, for example, are repeated cruises. They're seasonally repeated. We have data, received data for very many years from that. I think the last 10 years, actually. So this is obviously outstanding. Then there's a few data sets over here, which also show that, you know, there's a variety of cruises and moorings and fixed coastal stations. So we have a great variety in there. We've also got quite a few gaps still, as you might see. Again, the whole data portal gives you an introduction into what this data portal does. It's a tool for the submission, collection, validation, storage, and sharing of data and metadata submitted towards the Sustainable Development Goal indicator, as Kirsten mentioned. There's a brief outline of the 2030 agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals. Then we explain how this methodology came about. And as I told you before, we have these files for download. I would also just like to point out that we encourage open data access, and we have given in this data submission process several options for licenses and restrictions. So I'll show you that when we get to it. You'll also notice that here at the very top, we have instructions, FAQs, which we added recently following feedback from users. So thank you very much for everybody who submitted their questions. It has been invaluable. We have data sets and we have data. And I would just like to start quickly with the instructions. This is how to use this portal. Basically walks you through the first steps to take. So to upload your data set, you should please follow the following steps. You should sign in using an Ocean Expert credentials. And if you don't have Ocean Expert yet, you can just register here. This link will immediately take you to that page. And it's a very straightforward process. I would just like to point out that it can sometimes take a few hours for new accounts to be activated. So if you're signing in and you can't immediately access the data portal, please just be patient and come back the next day. Then we can create a new dataset on the My Dataset page that's following this link up here. First, you would create a draft version. Then you upload your metadata spreadsheet, the one that we've just gone through, or edit the metadata on the web form. And I will come to that in a minute. So after uploading the metadata spreadsheet, the form can be used to make changes, and the metadata record will be validated once you save it. Then you can upload your data spreadsheet. That's the order. First the metadata and then the data. And the data will then be interpreted using the previously entered metadata. And this is why it's so important to have the correct abbreviations in the metadata that correspond to the column names in the data sheet. Otherwise, there will be trouble. If changes are made to the metadata after uploading the data spreadsheet, you can then reprocess the data. So that's a button I will show you also. And the whole data submission can then be verified. Once you've done all of that and you're happy, the verification process is to your happiness, then you publish your version. And after the version is published, it can no longer be changed. You can then retire the data sets and create a new submission, but we will see all of that. So I'm just going to start, as is outlined here, by signing in. And I have an Ocean Expert account, so I can just sign in using that. And now I can also access all of these tabs. Instructions and FAQs are open anytime. The My Datasets one, not so much. So we've seen the instructions. FAQs, as I said, just has a lot of questions that we've received during this. So if you have any issues when you first submit data, I would recommend you first look at the FAQs, and then if that doesn't help at all, please feel free to email Kirsten or myself, and we'll be more than happy to help you out there. So to create a new data set, you go to the My Dataset page. And I would just like to quickly point out that this might look a little different for you, since I have admin rights on this. So you won't find a delete button, I don't think. Then click on New for a new data set. Give this a name. And it's usually quite helpful to give it a name that will have some information about who took it, what country it's from, whether it's a cruise or a station, or I'm just going to call it GOA-ON Island. And as I mentioned, we have these license agreements down here. So you can choose one of these 3 licenses, or we've added an extra license as well, which is that the data and metadata can only be used by IOC UNESCO for the purpose of the SDG 14.3.1 reporting and related derived products. So that would be the plots that Kirsten just showed. And any of these are fine, just please choose one of those, save. And as I mentioned before, this is where you can then edit the data set. So editing will just allow you to change the title or change the license that you approve of. Again, save. We're going to go on new version. And this is now marked as draft, as you can tell, because we haven't actually finished anything yet and we haven't submitted it. So as I said, there's different tabs here, different possibilities. So metadata file refers to the Excel sheet that we were going through earlier. There's also, as I mentioned, a metadata form. So this is the same as the metadata file, but the online version of it, if you like. So this is only available once you're on this data portal, whereas the Excel file can, of course, be filled in and manipulated offline. So again, same principle. It has the investigator name, it has the second investigator name, it has drop-down menus, it has everything marked with a red star as the corresponding to the red lines that we saw in the Excel metadata sheet. So these are the ones that are required. And this little I dot just does exactly what it says on the tin. It gives you basically the same information that you would see in the metadata instruction file. Just by hovering over it with your mouse, you will see these. So again, this is sort of subdivided a little bit more. We have data and personal information, then we have sampling information, depth, DIC, alkalinity, pH. And just to walk you through one of these, again, we have the variable abbreviation, the observation types, we have the collection methods, quality control, pH scale, all of these important measures. What you can do is that you can fill in all of your pH information and then validate and save just that bit. So that'll just save the pH. And you can come back another time to fill in the temperature data if you like, or any of the others. Again, same thing as with the Excel sheet, you can add a variable whenever you like. So if you have, for example, dissolved oxygen data, this is where you would add this, and this is where you would then fill in the information. So metadata form comes in 2 parts. It can either be the offline Excel sheet, or it can be the online metadata form that we just saw here. There's data file, that only comes in the Excel version. And there's a few things that need to be considered and that a few criteria that need to be met in order for this file to be legible. So the date should be in a column named date and formatted in a specific way. Same for time if you provide it. The coordinates should be in longitude and latitude and in decimal degrees, formatted as numbers. And any variable column mapped in the metadata sheet should be mapped as a number. So these are just a few things to keep in mind. Another thing that you will see is you can browse here to choose your file, and I'll do that in a minute. I'll just want to point you to this. As you saw earlier, there's in my data sheet that I showed you, there's depth. So I have the column headers and I have an extra column that has my units in it. So in this case, because I have 2 header lines, I need to choose 2 header lines. Otherwise, the system gets confused. Once you've done all that, and I will do in a minute, you can inspect the data, and then you will see it pop up on your station map, which corresponds to the map on the landing page of this portal. So having said all that, I will just start processing a metadata file. And so my metadata file that I've shown you earlier is called metadata north. I've browsed, it's there, I'm uploading. And that's been successfully updated. So you can see that the processing has been deemed a success. That's a good first step. Since I've done that, I don't need to fill in the metadata form online because this is all the metadata we need. I'll then go to the data file. Same thing, I've already said I want 2 header lines. I will choose my file. It's data north, very imaginative. And I will upload this. Again, this has been deemed a success, so that went well. This shows you how many records you have in total in your data sheet, and it also shows you the different variables that it's recognized. You can then, as I mentioned before, if you have made any changes to your metadata, you can reprocess the data sheet here. So in case something hasn't shown up or something wasn't legible, you can change the metadata file and then reprocess the data file. I'll now inspect the data. And this is just the first row. You can also just look at the next ones. But it shows you the variable abbreviation. This is the header in the data sheet, the variable that it was recognized as in the metadata sheet. So these two corresponded well, that worked. The unit also corresponded. I have a flag, and this is the flag value of my first row. Same for salinity, that's been recognized. Temperature, the sampling depth. The depth station is not relevant in this case. Salinity, that has worked too, and the total carbon, so the DIC. So I'm happy with that. This has passed my inspection. I can then look at the station map, see if that shows up where I think it should show up, which it did. So I've randomly chosen a French data point. And then having said all that, having done all that, being happy, I've inspected the data, it is what I supposed it should be. I've looked at the station map, it's where it should be. I am going to publish this version. And yes, I'm sure. Now that I've proceeded with this, it's been changed from draft to published, and it will also be visible in my data sets. There you go, GOA-ON Island. And all the published data, so all of these data sets that are in here and that have been deemed published, can also be seen under the data tab. And here, they can also be searched. So we have 1,045,600 observations from 90 data sets that are available here. So these are the ones that are open access through the licensing. You can see how many observations there are in each. So you can download them, either just go through the list and pick one that you like, or you can search by title if you know it, by category, platform category. So if you're looking to compare your mooring data to other mooring data, then that'll be fine. You can do that here. Or, for example, repeat hydrography. That would all be all of these. You can also combine these two by then adding a country, for example, which apparently is not happening. There you go. So ship-based time series, and France brings all of these data sets, and you can download them either all together, bundled by clicking download all, or you can just choose the ones you like here. And that is everything I have to tell you about the data portal for now. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me.
Thank you, Katarina and Kirsten, both for your presentations. As was said by one of our participants, just the context you provided on the SDG, the indicator, data submission, and the portal. So both practical and big picture has been really, really helpful and is appreciated. So we will go ahead and dive into questions. I know there are many, and I do want to just note that we're at the top of the hour. So for those that do need to head off, please note this will and has been recorded, so you can listen to this Q&A via the recording that can be found on the GOA-ON YouTube channel, or of course reach out to Kirsten and Katarina directly. Their emails are in the chat box. And Katarina and Kirsten, if it's okay with you, we will dive into questions. So now we'll start with some just bigger picture questions, if that's okay, in hopes that maybe some of those more detailed questions about the portal may be best answered directly or later. So the first question is about where to find national indicators for the SDG. So where can the national focal points related to indicator 14.3.1 be found? Noting that it's been difficult to identify these in the Latin American and Caribbean regions.
So when you look at the IOC website, you have the IOC member states and the IOC representatives, and those are our focal points in this regard. This might be sometimes different in some of the countries that they have particular SDG focal points, but for SDG 14, those don't really exist because it's rather technical. So we go via that, and we go via our NODCs. If you don't have this focal point at hand, don't hesitate to actually submit, because we will then establish this communication. So it's, or put us directly a question if you can't find it. So that's how we also hope to help the scientific community in this regard.
Yeah, absolutely. I can just reiterate, we've received quite a few questions, and we've contacted then either the NODCs or the national focal points. And this has helped a lot to create these connections that Kirsten was talking about. And it's made the national agencies aware of who's doing research in their countries, and it's made the national researchers aware of where to host their data in the future. So this has been quite helpful.
Great, thank you. And this might be in the same boat. Pardon any ignorance, but do we have any global agreements which state ocean pH targets?
No. The target is to minimize the impacts. I know that the indicator in itself is only about measuring, and this is where the gap is between the indicator and the target. And this is also where GOA-ON and what was presented at the last webinar really tries to close this gap a little bit, in also now providing some, or hopefully soon with the upcoming paper, will provide some guidance on how to measure the biological impact, and then we can have a target. But there is no real target of we can't go lower than that and that. Also because that's not really feasible, because it's more the change, the rate of change, which is important, and not so much the absolute value. And so, or increased variability, because this is what organisms are exposed to, and due to the fact that there is not one average pH, therefore it's also at different sites. We don't have one global value, and even though there is always this number, and which was also put out in the SG report, which I showed, with the 26% of increase of acidity. This is like a hook, and it's also it's something which should be seen as a hook, so that we can also educate the non-scientists to really have a deeper dive, and that it's so this was in last year, but this is what sometimes the people then grab. And our role as well is to educate and to say it's not only about this one number, it's about how much in the specific regions, in the specific places.
Great, thank you, Kirsten, for clarifying that. And one, I think, just further clarification and a related question. Do I understand correctly that SDG 14.3 is only concerned with the data on acidity within EEZs of states?
No, we are here not in the UNFCCC, so which only kind of addresses the areas within jurisdiction. The 2030 agenda is not so much about that. But of course, a lot of the measurements which are conducted now by especially newcomers to the fields are in coastal areas, are within the EEZs. As you saw on the portal, which also Katharina presented, a lot of data sets are also in the open ocean. There, of course, it's also, those are only submitted by the country, but they are of course not representing the country's EEZ, and that's a difficulty in this area, where we then have to go into global aggregation. But the so that's a little bit a gray zone, which we try to navigate so that we can really show what the impact of ocean acidification in terms of chemistry is also in the open ocean. So it's not only about EEZs. Every ocean observation value is of value, and because in the end the circulation and so on, everything which also happens in the open ocean will also affect our EEZs and the other way around. So long story short, no, it's about everything also beyond EEZs.
Great, thank you, Kirsten. So we'll shift gears, now noting the importance of submitting data, to some questions about submission and the portal itself. So the first one was, can we update data sets in the portal at any time?
Yes, you can. As you might have noticed, there is the possibility of deleting your data sets. So if you have, what we have noticed, and forgive me, we've only have 2 years of experience with this so far. So we have had a few very kind, very keen researchers who have submitted follow-up data sets to the ones that they've submitted in the first year. So we have had data sets for the same spots, for the same moorings, for example, which were measured following the same methodologies and everything. So the metadata hasn't changed, and they were just able to then add data sheets to that. So that is one way you can do it. You can also, if something has changed and if you have new data sets, you can definitely delete and retire your data sets that you have already submitted and resubmit new ones. So unfortunately, you can't access them and just change them. You can download them, change them, re-upload them under a different name. That is definitely a possibility.
Great, thank you. Another pretty practical question, is it possible to download data from the portal?
Yes, definitely. It is possible to download data, sorry. Yes, you can download data from the portal. As I've shown, you can go through, once you've signed in, that is, so you have to have an Ocean Expert account. Once you've signed in, you have complete access to the data sets that were given under open access licensing agreements. So We've had a few that are embargoed, a few data sets that are embargoed because people are still publishing this data, and we all know that data that is unpublished cannot be shared otherwise. And also we've had a few where actually due to political reasons or for reasons that we don't really need to know that much have been given to us under either a closed license or the license that we can only use it for the SDG data reporting purposes, which we welcome all data sets. So you can search every data set that's under open data licensing agreements, and the other ones will remain hidden. But yes, you can.
Just a quick comment on that. Of course, we accept it also because we really want to encourage capacity building. But one of our major goals is really also to have this open access. I mean, GOA-ON and we are as well with our with the IODE data policy are really striving towards fair data, and having it's important to see that your data sets are getting richer and probably more used, and it's for new innovative science, and I think that's something great. So I encourage everybody, when it's possible, really to submit as open access.
Great. There are a few questions related to the National Oceanographic Data Center in the US. So one, if they've submitted data there, is there anything more that's needed as you all harvest NODC's inventory? That's sort of a clarification or question. And just any more details you can give about the plan for IOD moving to a data harvesting mode from the national data centers.
So thank you for those two questions. Very important questions. Indeed, we try to have the best communication possible with the NODC. Sometimes still there's no reaction. I mean, we all receive so many emails, we all receive so many requests, and so if you just check if your data sets are also submitted to the 14.3.1. We are not automatically harvesting yet any other data system. This is something which we all know requires some development, and those people are not sitting on the street, I can tell you. So we are trying and hopeful that we can now start this process really with the help of experts in the field to establish that, to establish communication automatic, establish this federated system with databases like SOCAT, with big national databases and small national oceanographic data centers, regional data centers, and then really have this facilitate the scientist's life. But yes, we hope that for the next round of submission, this will be in place, or at least a prototype.
Great, thank you. Another batch of questions, and just being aware of time, we'll ask this and finish on a bigger picture question. There are a few questions just that are curious or inquiring about what is the best way to request capacity building courses for scientific communities? Are there courses for non-scientists to involve citizen science? This is, of course, more of a data collection question, or any tools to increase training on analytical techniques on ocean acidification in underdeveloped countries. So any insights you can offer there?
We are currently, it's a very, very good question, by the way. Thank you very much for asking that. We are currently developing an Ocean Teacher Global Academy course on ocean acidification, which will include, as Kirsten mentioned, the SDG methodology and the whole data processing. It'll also include an introduction to ocean acidification, an introduction into the carbonate system of the ocean. We will have modules on biological experiments, on observations in the field, on data quality assurance, on a range of sort of basic ocean acidification topics that will definitely be available for, I would say, people with a slight understanding of sciences already. So I think it's more geared towards whether you're a biologist or a chemist or a stakeholder, somebody who's been dealing with aquaculture issues or these kinds of things, somebody who has already, you know, read about this and has a basic understanding, does know what it is basically. And this will be available through the Ocean Teacher Global Academy website, and it'll be available for downloads. So for now, it's a purely online course. It will include lectures given by absolute top experts in the field. It will include a lot of background material for you to read on your own, and it'll all be downloadable. So you can download the courses, you can download all the material and go through it at your own pace and whenever you are ready to do so. And to add to that, we also, together with GOA-ON and the GOA-ON partners, including the NOAA Ocean Acidification Program and the IAEA OAICC, the Ocean Acidification International Corporation
Coordination Center.
Coordination Center, that one. Too many abbreviations, thank you. Together with GOA-ON and the IOC are organizing quite a few trainings, and we will advertise those when they happen. They are currently, due to the circumstances, mostly webinar shapes or online courses, but we do hope to have more interactive ones coming up as well, and we hope to then, once traveling can resume safely again, have courses either at Ocean Teacher Global Academy training centers or at the training centers in Monaco, Paris, and wherever we are based. Also, these courses quite often include experts and teachers traveling to remote areas. So there's been quite a few trainings in South Pacific Islands, for example. And we hope to keep the momentum going on that, but we definitely have a few things that are being developed and that are being planned. So just watch this space.
Just quickly, because we are running out of time, for non-scientists, I mean, we are happy to this very scientific talks we gave here, maybe mine not so much, but to adapt as well to the audience. We are open to give instructions, give more guidance, so it's just contact us in this regard. We are kind of all over the place, and therefore I said as well, you might have heard me before talking about similar issues. So it's just contact us, and we are happy to help. And also with instrumentation, it's ocean acidification will never be a cheap science, but there's a lot of international support to that, and I think GOA-ON already did a great job in that, and will continue to do so together as well with the Ocean Foundation, who's a great partner in that. So there are opportunities, and just stay tuned, sign up to GOA-ON to be informed about those things, and then we can also try to help you in the best way possible.
Great, thank you both. In the interest of time, I think we'll wrap there. There are some great links, some email addresses that you all can connect with, as Katerina and Kirsten have graciously offered to answer any questions that remain. And just as a reminder, of course, this recording will be made available on the GOA-ON YouTube channel, which can be found at GOA-ON.org. And all of these links should be in the chat box. And just thanks again to our speakers, Kirsten and Katerina. And thank you to each of you who took the time to join us today. And with that, we will close today's webinar.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.